2:47 p.m., 13 minutes early. The windshield wipers squeaked against glass that wasn't wet enough to need them. Amara switched them off and killed the engine. She should not have come. The school sat behind iron gates painted a green so dark it looked black in the overcast light. Security cameras pivoted on posts at regular intervals. A guard booth flanked the entrance, staffed by a man in a blazer who stood with his hands folded, watching nothing and everything. Her hand stayed on the wheel. The letter had arrived 6 days ago. Typed, formal. Return address from a law firm she'd never heard of. Inside, a single paragraph informing her that her daughter, as if there could be any question, was enrolled at Westbrook Academy and that her presence had been requested by the administration. No name on the request, no explanation, just an address, a date, and a time. She'd thrown the letter in the trash, then fished it out at midnight, read it again under the bathroom light while her roommate slept in the next room. Now she was here. A black SUV pulled into the lot 3 spaces to her left. Tinted windows. The engine stayed running. Amara's fingers tightened on the wheel. She watched the SUV through her peripheral vision. No one emerged. The engine idled, steady and patient. She reached for her door handle, stopped, pulled her hand back. The guard at the booth had turned his head. He was looking at her car now, at the dent in the rear fender, at the rust creeping along the wheel well. She could leave. She could reverse out of this lot, drive back to the apartment, tell herself it was a mistake. But the letter hadn't been addressed to the wrong person. It had her name. It had Zoe's name. And it had known where to find her. The SUV's rear door opened. A woman in a gray suit stepped out, pressed a phone to her ear, and walked toward the school without looking back. The door closed behind her. The SUV stayed. Amara grabbed her purse from the passenger seat. The zipper caught on a loose thread. She yanked it free, checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, and wished she hadn't. She'd slept 4 hours. It showed. The car door groaned when she pushed it open. She stepped onto asphalt, still damp from yesterday's rain, and locked the car twice because the first beep sounded uncertain. The walk to the guard booth took 30 seconds. It felt longer. The man in the blazer didn't smile. Name? Amara Okonkwo. He consulted a tablet. His expression didn't change. ID. She pulled her license from her wallet. He scanned it with a device attached to his belt, waited for a beep, and handed it back without comment. Main building, through the courtyard. Office will be on your left. Thank you. He didn't respond. The gate buzzed. She pushed through and walked. The courtyard smelled like money. That was the only way she could describe it. Landscaped hedges trimmed to geometric perfection. Stone benches positioned beneath trees that had been placed, not planted. A fountain that trickled water in a sound engineered to soothe. Her heels clicked against the cobblestones. The sound echoed back from walls designed to swallow it. The main building rose 4 stories high. Ivy crawled up the eastern face, cultivated and controlled. Brass letters above the entrance spelled out Westbrook Academy in a font she'd seen on trust fund documents. The front door opened before she reached it. A woman in her 50s stood just inside, clipboard pressed to her chest, smile practiced and professional. Ms. Okonkwo? Yes. I'm Patricia Chen, assistant to the headmaster. We spoke on the phone. They hadn't spoken on the phone. Amara had received a voicemail she'd deleted without listening to all the way through. She didn't correct the woman. If you'll follow me. Patricia turned and walked. Her heels made no sound on the marble floor. The entrance hall stretched high and wide. Portraits lined the walls, men in suits, women in pearls, faces arranged in expressions of beneficent authority. A chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals catching light from windows Amara couldn't see. She counted doors as they passed, 4 on the left, 6 on the right, each one closed. Patricia stopped at the 7th. The headmaster will see you shortly. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea? No, thank you. Very well. Patricia opened the door and stepped aside. The office was empty. Amara walked in. The door closed behind her with a soft click. She didn't sit. The desk dominated the room. Dark wood, polished to a shine that reflected the overhead lights. Behind it, a window overlooked the courtyard she'd just crossed. She could see her car from here. The rust was visible even at this distance. A clock on the wall ticked. She watched the second hand complete 2 rotations. The door opened. She turned. A man entered, gray at the temples, suit that fit like it had been measured to the millimeter. He carried a folder in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. He didn't extend his hand. Ms. Okonkwo, please, sit. She sat. He rounded the desk and settled into his chair. The leather creaked once, then went silent. I appreciate you coming on such short notice. Your letter didn't leave much room for questions. He set the folder on the desk, didn't open it. No, I imagine it didn't. Silence. Amara waited. The headmaster, she still didn't know his name, picked up his coffee. Sipped, set it down. Your daughter is doing well here. The words hit like a slap. My daughter. Zoe, yes. He said it like it was simple, like it explained anything. I haven't seen my daughter in 4 years. I know. Then you know I didn't put her in this school. No. Her father did. Her father. The words hung in the air. Amara's hands pressed flat against her thighs. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips. I wasn't aware her father had involvement in her life. He didn't. Until recently. The headmaster opened the folder. Inside, a photograph. A little girl with braids smiling at the camera in a uniform she didn't own 4 years ago. Amara didn't reach for it. Why am I here? Because he asked us to contact you. He. Mr. Sterling. The name landed with weight. Amara knew that name. Everyone knew that name. It appeared on buildings, foundations, headlines. It belonged to a man who owned things that couldn't be owned and controlled things that shouldn't be controlled. It did not belong to the man who had gotten her pregnant at 23 and vanished before she'd missed her second period. There must be a mistake. There isn't. The headmaster slid a second document from the folder. Legal letterhead. DNA results dated 18 months ago. Mr. Sterling became aware of Zoe's existence 2 years ago. He's had legal custody for 14 months. The room tilted. Amara gripped the armrests. That's not possible. I'm her mother. I have custody. You relinquished custody to the state when you entered treatment 5 years ago. The words were quiet. Clinical. They cut anyway. I completed treatment. I filed for reinstatement. Your petition was denied. On what grounds? Financial instability, inadequate housing. The court felt it was not in the child's best interest. She wanted to stand. She stayed seated. I wasn't notified. You were. The notice was returned undeliverable. You'd moved. 3 times. She'd moved 3 times in 1 year, chasing jobs that paid enough to afford the filing fees for another petition. So he just took her? He established paternity. He met the court's requirements. The adoption was finalized quietly. Adoption. Legal adoption. Yes. Amara stared at the photograph, at the girl she'd held in the hospital room before the nurses took her for tests, at the girl she'd lost to her own weakness and the system that was supposed to help her, at the girl who was now legally someone else's daughter. Why am I here? The headmaster closed the folder. Because Mr. Sterling would like to meet with you. Today. Here. Why? That's something you'll need to discuss with him. A knock at the door. Patricia's voice came through, muffled. Sir, he's arrived. The headmaster stood. I'll give you a moment. He left. Amara sat alone in the office, staring at the closed folder. Her daughter was in this building. Somewhere behind these walls, in a classroom she'd never seen, learning from teachers she'd never met. Her daughter, who belonged to someone else now. She could still leave. She could walk out the door, past the guard booth, back to her car with its rust and its dents and its engine that knocked when she pushed it past 60. She could leave and never know why he'd summoned her here. The door opened again, and Damien Sterling walked in. He was taller than the photographs suggested, broader. He wore his suit the way other men wore skin, without thought, without effort. He closed the door behind him. Amara didn't stand. He crossed to the desk, didn't sit, didn't extend his hand. He looked at her the way someone looks at a problem they've been asked to solve. You came. You summoned. His jaw tightened. Just slightly. Just enough. I invited. Your letter didn't read like an invitation. He pulled the chair from behind the desk and sat across from her. Not behind the desk. Across. The positioning felt deliberate. Would you have come if it had? She didn't answer. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped. I need to explain something to you. You need to explain a lot of things. I know. He paused, waited. Amara said nothing. 5 years ago, I didn't know you existed. I didn't know Zoe existed. Our encounter was brief, and I was not in a place where I was paying attention to consequences. Our encounter. I'm not proud of the language, but I'm trying to be accurate. You're trying to be clinical. I'm trying to have a conversation. She crossed her arms. Go on. 2 years ago, someone I employed ran a standard background check on a woman I was considering for a business partnership. Her name came up adjacent to yours. There was a note about a child. I investigated. You investigated. I had questions. I needed answers. And when you got your answers, you decided to take my daughter. His expression shifted. Something moved behind his eyes. I decided to provide for my daughter. A daughter who was in the foster system because her mother couldn't. Don't. The word cut the air. He stopped. Amara's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs again. You don't get to tell me what I couldn't do. You weren't there. You have no idea what I went through to try to get her back. I read the files. Files don't tell you anything. They told me you entered rehabilitation for substance abuse when Zoe was 18 months old. Yes. They told me you completed the program and relapsed twice before completing it again. Yes. They told me you lived in 6 different addresses in 3 years, none of which met the court standards for child custody. Yes. He waited. Amara met his eyes. They didn't tell you that I worked 3 jobs to pay for that program. They didn't tell you that I relapsed because my sponsor died and I couldn't afford another one. They didn't tell you that every apartment I lived in was the best I could find with what I had. No, they didn't. So you read the facts and you drew your conclusions and you took her. I took her out of a group home where she'd been placed after her 3rd foster placement failed. The word stopped her. What? Her 3rd foster family returned her to the state after 8 months. She was in a group facility when I filed for custody. Amara's chest tightened. I wasn't told. You weren't her legal guardian. You had no right to be told. She's my daughter. She's my daughter too. The room went quiet. Outside, somewhere in the building, a bell rang. The sound was muffled by walls and distance. Damien stood, walked to the window, looked out at the courtyard. I didn't bring you here to argue about the past. Then why did you bring me here? Because Zoe has been asking about you. Amara's breath caught. What? She knows she's adopted. She knows her birth mother is still alive. She's been asking questions I can't answer. What kind of questions? She wants to know why you left. The words landed like stones. I didn't leave. I was sick and I tried to get better, and by the time I did, I know. But she doesn't understand that. She's 7. She understands that her mother went away and didn't come back. Amara stood. Her legs felt unsteady. You want me to explain it to her? I want you to meet her. He turned from the window. I want you to meet her, and I want her to see that you're alive and that you're here and that you didn't abandon her by choice. And then what? And then we see what happens next. You mean you decide what happens next? I mean, we figure it out together. Together. The word sounded foreign coming from his mouth. Why would you do that? Do what? Share her. You have legal custody. You have resources I'll never have. You could keep her from me forever, and there's nothing I could do about it. I know. So why? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I grew up without a mother, and I know what that absence does to a child. Amara searched his face for the lie, for the angle, for the manipulation. She couldn't find it. When? Now. If you're ready. Now? Her class ends in 10 minutes. I can have her brought here or we can go to her. I'm not. She looked down at herself. At the blouse she'd ironed at 6 this morning. At the skirt she'd worn to 3 job interviews before this one. At the shoes that needed resoling. You look fine. I look like someone who doesn't belong in this building. You look like her mother. Amara closed her eyes. 4 years. 4 years of imagining this moment, of practicing what she would say, of wondering if she would ever get the chance. And now it was here, and she wasn't ready, and she would never be ready, and it didn't matter. Okay. Take me to her. The hallway stretched long and polished. Their footsteps echoed in offset rhythms. His measured, hers uneven. Damien walked half a step ahead. Not leading, just knowing where to go. They passed classrooms with windows that showed small heads bent over desks. A teacher's voice drifted through a closed door, explaining something about fractions. A woman in a suit walked toward them from the opposite direction. She slowed when she saw Damien, adjusted her trajectory, pressed herself against the wall to give him room. He didn't acknowledge her. Amara watched the woman's eyes follow them as they passed. Does everyone here know who you are? Most. Does Zoe know? She knows I'm her father. She doesn't fully understand what that means in terms of... He paused. Public attention. You've kept her sheltered. I've kept her safe. They turned a corner, another hallway, more doors. How much does she know about me? She knows your name. She knows you're from Lagos originally. She knows you wanted to keep her but couldn't. Did you tell her why I couldn't? I told her you got sick and needed to get better. That's generous. It's the truth. Amara said nothing. They stopped outside a door marked Room 12. Through the small window, she could see a classroom arranged in clusters of small desks. Children in uniform sat in groups working on projects with colored paper and glue. That's her. Damien's voice was quieter now. He pointed. Third cluster from the door. A girl with braids tied with yellow ribbons. She was leaning over her desk, tongue pressed to the corner of her mouth in concentration, cutting something from green paper. Amara's hand found the wall. She looks like you. Yes. The girl looked up, said something to the child next to her, laughed. The sound didn't reach through the glass, but Amara could see it, could see the way her face transformed, the way her shoulders shook, the way her whole body participated in the joy. She didn't remember teaching her daughter to laugh like that. Are you ready? No. Do you want to wait? No. Damien knocked twice on the door. A teacher appeared. Young, blonde, wearing the nervous expression of someone who knew exactly who was knocking. Mr. Sterling, we weren't expecting. I need to pull Zoe from class, just for a few minutes. The teacher's eyes moved to Amara, back to Damien. Of course, I'll get her. The door closed. Amara watched through the window as the teacher crossed to Zoe's desk, bent down. whispered something. Zoe looked up, looked toward the door, looked at Amara. The moment stretched. Then Zoe pushed back her chair and walked toward them, her project forgotten on the desk behind her. The door opened, and Amara's daughter stood in front of her for the first time in 4 years. Zoe was smaller than Amara expected. She'd been building an image in her mind for so long, adding height and weight with each passing year, that the real child seemed diminished by comparison. But her eyes were exactly as Amara remembered. Dark and deep and watching everything. "Hi." The word came from Zoe, small, careful. "Hi." Amara's voice cracked on the single syllable. Zoe looked at Damien. "Dad?" "Zoe, this is Amara. I know who she is." The words were flat, not hostile, just certain. Damien crouched down to Zoe's level. "I thought you might want to meet her, in person." Zoe studied Amara the way one might study a problem on a test, looking for the trick, the trap. "You're my birth mom." "Yes." "You went away." "Yes." "Dad says you were sick." "I was." "Are you still sick?" Amara shook her head. Her throat was too tight for words. "You don't look sick. I'm better now." "How long have you been better?" 3 years. Zoe processed this. Her brow furrowed. "That's a long time." "Yes." "Why didn't you come before?" Amara looked at Damien. He gave nothing away. "I didn't know where you were." "Didn't you look?" "I tried. It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that." "I know. I'm sorry." Zoe tilted her head. "What are you sorry for?" Everything. She was sorry for everything. For the choices and the mistakes and the circumstances and the system, and her own weakness and the time she could never get back. But she couldn't say that to a 7-year-old. "I'm sorry I wasn't here." "Are you going to be here now?" The question hung in the air. Amara looked at Damien again. This time he nodded. Slightly. Almost imperceptibly. "I'd like to be. If that's okay with you." Zoe considered this. "Do you have to ask Dad?" "Yes." "Did he say yes?" "He said we would figure it out together." Zoe's expression shifted. Something that might have been hope flickered across her features before disappearing behind caution. "Okay. Okay? Okay, you can stay." The words were simple. A child's words. They carried no legal weight, no formal agreement, no binding contract. But they were permission, and that was enough. The conference room they moved to was smaller than the headmaster's office. A round table, 6 chairs, a window that looked out on a garden. Zoe sat between Amara and Damien, her project, half-finished paper leaves, spread out in front of her. "We're making a tree for science class." "It's beautiful." "It's not done yet." "It will be beautiful when it's done." Zoe picked up her scissors and resumed cutting. Her focus was absolute. Amara watched her hands move. Those hands had been so small once. Tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb in the hospital. Tiny fingers reaching for her face while she fed her. "You cut your hair." Amara touched the back of her neck reflexively. Her hair had been long before, long enough to braid, long enough for Zoe to grab and pull. "Yes. I like it. Thank you." Zoe glanced up. "Did you like my braids? The ones Dad picked out?" "Your dad picked out your braids?" "No." Zoe giggled. "Ms. Carmen does my hair, but Dad picks the ribbons." Amara looked at Damien. He was watching Zoe work, his expression unreadable. "Yellow's my favorite," Zoe continued. "What's your favorite color?" "Blue." "Dad's is black." "That's not a color," Damien said. "It's the absence of color." "That's what you always say." Zoe rolled her eyes with theatrical exasperation. "But it's still your favorite." The exchange was practiced, familiar. A well-worn groove in a relationship Amara had no part in. She felt the edges of it, the shape of a family she didn't belong to. "Will you be at dinner?" Zoe had stopped cutting. She was looking at Amara with an expression that tried very hard to seem casual. Zoe. Damien's voice was gentle but firm. We talked about this. Today is just for meeting. But you said if the meeting went well, and we'll talk about next steps later, together. But later, Zoe's jaw tightened. She looked at the table, at her scissors, at the incomplete tree. Fine. The word carried weight beyond its single syllable. Amara recognized that tone. She'd used it herself at that age. The particular frustration of being small in a world run by people who got to make all the decisions. I would like to come to dinner. Both of them looked at her. If that's allowed, I would like to. Damien's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe. Or something else. That wasn't the plan. Plans change. There are protocols, security considerations, background checks that haven't been. I've spent 4 years waiting for a chance to see my daughter. I'm not leaving after 20 minutes. Zoe's eyes went wide. Damien's went narrow. This isn't a negotiation. No, it's a request. And you can say no, but I'm asking. The room went quiet. Zoe looked between them, her half-finished tree forgotten. Damien pulled out his phone, typed something, waited. A response came. He read it. His jaw tightened. Dinner is at 7. I'll have someone pick you up at 6:30. I have a car. You'll ride with my security team. Why? Because my daughter doesn't travel without protection, and if you're going to be with her, neither do you. It wasn't a concession. It was a condition. Amara nodded. 6:30. The SUV that arrived at 6:28 was black, tinted and idling at the curb before Amara finished locking her apartment door. A man in a dark suit stood beside the rear passenger door. He didn't speak, didn't introduce himself, just opened the door and waited. Amara hesitated on the sidewalk. Her apartment building sat in a block of 6 others, identical in their brick facades and rusted fire escapes. The SUV looked like it had been dropped from another planet. A curtain twitched in the window, 2 doors down. Mrs. Patterson, watching. Amara got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly chemical. Cleaning solution, maybe, or whatever they used to remove traces of previous passengers. The man closed the door and got in the front. A second man sat behind the wheel, also silent, also suited. The engine was already running. "Seat belt, please." The driver's voice came through speakers built into the headrest. Amara buckled in. They pulled away from the curb. Mrs. Patterson's curtain dropped. The drive took 40 minutes. They left the city, merged onto a highway Amara rarely used, then exited onto roads that grew progressively narrower and more private. Trees replaced buildings, fences replaced sidewalks. The gates they finally stopped at were black iron, 12 feet high, monitored by cameras that tracked the vehicle's approach. A guard stepped out of a booth, checked something on a tablet, waved them through. The driveway curved through landscaped grounds that seemed to go on forever. Amara lost count of the security checkpoints, 3, maybe 4, each one staffed, each one requiring silent clearance. The house, mansion, estate, whatever word applied, rose from the landscape like it had grown there. Stone and glass and angles that suggested an architect had been paid to make a statement. The SUV stopped at a covered entrance. The driver opened her door. "Ms. Okonkwo, welcome." She stepped out. A woman waited just inside the entrance. Middle-aged, professional. She held a tablet in one hand and a name badge that read Margaret in the other. "Ms. Okonkwo. I'm Margaret. I manage the household, if you'll follow me." Amara followed. The interior matched the exterior, controlled, expensive, deliberately impressive. The entryway opened onto a hall that split in 3 directions. Marble floors. Art on the walls that looked like it belonged in museums. Margaret led her left, then right, then through a door that opened onto a smaller corridor. "Dinner will be in the family dining room." Zoe requested it. As opposed to? The formal dining room seats 40. The family room is more intimate. Intimate. For a room that could probably fit Amara's entire apartment. They stopped at a closed door. Mr. Sterling asked that you wait here. He'll join you shortly. Where's Zoe? Finishing her homework. She'll be down in 15 minutes. Margaret opened the door. Inside, a sitting room. Sofas arranged around a fireplace that held no fire. Windows that looked out on gardens fading into evening shadow. Can I get you anything? Water? Wine? Water. Please. Margaret nodded and left. Amara didn't sit. She walked to the window instead. Looked out at grounds that stretched into darkness. Somewhere out there, guards patrolled, cameras watched, security systems monitored. Her daughter lived behind all of this. The door opened behind her. She turned. Damien entered. He'd changed from his suit into something more casual. Dark pants, a sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. You came. I said I would. He crossed to a side table, poured something amber into a glass. Drink? I don't drink. He paused, set down the decanter. Right, of course. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's fine. He picked up his glass but didn't drink, just held it. I want to be clear about something. Okay. What happened today, that invitation, it wasn't supposed to lead to this. To dinner? To you being here, in my home. Then why did you invite me to meet her at all? He took a long breath. Because she needed to see you. She's been having nightmares, asking questions I can't answer. Her therapist suggested, she has a therapist? Most children of wealthy families do. The statement landed without weight, just fact. Her therapist suggested that meeting you might help her process the abandonment. I didn't abandon her. I know. But that's how she's been framing it. And you thought a 20-minute meeting would fix that? I thought it would be a start. Amara crossed her arms. And now? Now I don't know. He moved to the fireplace. Pressed something on the mantel. Gas flames sprang to life, blue and controlled. You weren't supposed to push for dinner. I wasn't supposed to just leave. That was the plan. Your plan. Yes, my plan. He turned to face her. I don't like surprises. I don't like variables I haven't accounted for. You showing up here in my house with my daughter, that's a variable. I'm her mother. You're a stranger. To her. To me. To this life. That's not my fault. I didn't say it was. The fire crackled. The flames cast moving shadows across his face. What do you want from me? I want to know my daughter. That's not simple. I know. Do you? Do you understand what you're asking? He set down his glass. Zoe's life is complicated. There are security considerations, privacy concerns. People who would use her to get to me, to my business, to... I'm not trying to get anything from you. Everyone is trying to get something from me. I'm not everyone. He studied her. Long seconds stretched. No, you're not. The door opened. Zoe burst through, still in her school uniform, braids slightly askew. You stayed. She ran to Amara before anyone could stop her and wrapped her arms around Amara's waist. The contact was unexpected. Electric. Amara's hands hovered for a moment before settling on Zoe's shoulders. I stayed. Dad said you might not. He said dinner was... Zoe. Damien's voice carried a warning. Zoe looked up at Amara. He was worried you'd leave again. I'm not leaving. The words came out before she could consider them, before she could calculate their weight. Zoe's arms tightened. Over her head, Amara met Damien's eyes. He said nothing, but something in his expression shifted. Dinner was served in a room that seated 12, but held only 3. Zoe sat between them again, her chair slightly closer to Amara's than to Damien's. Staff moved silently, placing plates, filling glasses, disappearing. The food was simple: roast chicken, vegetables, rice. Child appropriate. Zoe approved. I don't like the green beans. You need to eat your vegetables. I ate the carrots. Green beans too. Zoe made a face, ate a green bean, made another face. Amara watched the exchange, the practiced rhythm of it, the familiarity. She hates vegetables, Damien said, noting her attention. Always has. I remember. He looked up sharply. She used to spit out peas when she was little. She'd take them in her mouth and then just, Amara mimed the action. Everywhere, on me, on the floor, everywhere, Zoe giggled. I still don't like peas. What do you like? Chicken nuggets, pizza, ice cream. Zoe counted on her fingers. Pancakes, mac and cheese, apples but only the red kind. Not green apples? No, too sour. I agree, Zoe beamed. Damien ate in silence, watching them. Did you eat dinner together when I was a baby? The question came from nowhere. Children's questions often did. Amara set down her fork. Sometimes. What did we eat? Whatever I could make. I wasn't a very good cook. Dad's not either. That's why we have Margaret. Margaret cooks? Margaret runs the house. Chef David cooks. Of course there was a chef. Of course there was a Margaret. Of course there was a system, a structure, a staff that made sure Zoe never wanted for anything. Did you have a chef when I was little? No. What did you have? Amara thought about the apartment. One room, a hot plate, a mini fridge that hummed too loud and kept nothing cold enough. I had you. Zoe considered this. Just me? Just you. Was it lonely? Sometimes, but mostly it was. She stopped, swallowed. It was good, having you. Zoe reached out and touched Amara's hand. Just a brief contact, child's fingers against adult skin. I'm glad you're not lonely now. Amara's throat tightened. Me too. Damien cleared his throat. Zoe, it's almost time for bed. But no arguments. Can Amara read me a story? The request hung in the air. Amara looked at Damien. He looked at his plate, at his daughter, at the woman he'd brought into his carefully controlled world. One story. Zoe's face lit up. Come on. She grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her from the table, leaving Damien alone with the remains of dinner and the staff who materialized to clear it. Zoe's room was on the second floor. Pink walls, purple curtains, books everywhere, on shelves, stacked on the floor, piled on a desk meant for homework. This is my room. It's beautiful. I picked the colors. Dad wanted blue. Your favorite is yellow. Zoe stopped, turned. You remembered. You told me this afternoon. Oh. Her face fell slightly. I thought maybe from before. Amara crouched down to Zoe's level. I remember some things from before, but you were very small. You didn't have favorite colors yet, just needs, hungry, tired, wet. That's boring. A little, but also wonderful. What was wonderful about it? Everything. The way you smelled, the way you held my finger, the way you looked at me like I was the whole world. Zoe's eyes went wide. Like the whole world? Yes. Do you still look at me like that? Amara's heart cracked open. I think I always will. Zoe threw her arms around her neck. The hug was fierce, sudden, overwhelming. Amara held on. I'm glad you came back. I'm glad I found you. Will you stay? Not forever. Just for a while, so I can know you. So she could know her. All those years, all that distance, and what her daughter wanted, what she needed, was simply to know. I'll stay as long as your dad lets me. Zoe pulled back. Dad likes you. What makes you say that? He let you come to dinner. He never lets anyone come to dinner. Maybe he was just being nice. Zoe shook her head. Dad's not nice like that. He's nice in other ways, but not let strangers come to dinner nice. You're different. Different. Yes, she supposed she was. Which story do you want me to read? Zoe scrambled to her bookshelf and pulled out a worn paperback. This one. It's about a bear who loses his family and finds a new one, but then his old family comes back and he has to figure out where he belongs. Amara took the book, looked at the cover. A cartoon bear standing between two groups of other bears, looking confused. This sounds like a complicated story. It is, but it has a happy ending. How does it end? The bear figures out he can belong to both families. He doesn't have to choose. Amara's fingers tightened on the spine. That's a good ending. I know. Zoe climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. You can sit there. She pointed to a chair beside the bed. That's where Dad sits. Amara sat, opened the book, and began to read. 30 minutes later, Zoe was asleep. Amara set the book on the nightstand and watched her breathe, in and out, steady and peaceful. She'd forgotten how children sleep, the totality of it, the surrender. Zoe had fought consciousness for the last 10 pages, her eyes drooping, her questions growing slower, her grip on Amara's hand loosening by degrees. Now she was gone. Somewhere in dreams Amara couldn't follow. The door creaked. Damien stood in the doorway. Amara rose carefully, not wanting to wake Zoe, and crossed to where he waited. They stepped into the hall. He pulled the door mostly closed, leaving a crack of light from the nightlight inside. She's asleep. I heard you reading. You were listening? I check on her every night. It's habit. They stood in the hallway, portraits on the walls, carpet thick enough to swallow footsteps. I should go. Yes. Neither of them moved. Thank you. For dinner. For letting me read to her. She wanted it. And you? What do you want? He didn't answer immediately. I want what's best for her. And you don't know if that includes me. I don't know if that includes anyone. I've spent 2 years trying to give her everything she needs. A home, education, security, stability. He paused. But she keeps asking for the one thing I can't provide. Her mother. Yes. Amara leaned against the wall. What do you propose? I don't know. I didn't plan for this. Any of this. You seem like a man who plans everything. I am. Then what happened? He was quiet for a long moment. You happened. The words sat between them. What does that mean? It means I spent 2 years building a perfect system. Guards, schedules, routines. Everything controlled, everything accounted for. And then you showed up at that school and agreed to stay for dinner, and my daughter looks at you like... He stopped. Like what? Like you're the answer to something she's been asking. Maybe I am. Maybe. Or maybe you'll disappear again and break her heart worse than before. I won't. You don't know that. You can't promise that. No, but I can try. Isn't that what we all do? Try? He studied her face, looking for something. Truth, maybe, or weakness. I don't trust easily. I noticed. But Zoe, she trusts immediately, completely. That's a problem. It's also a gift. It's a vulnerability. It doesn't have to be. He exhaled, long and slow. I'm going to propose something, and I need you to consider it before you respond. Okay? I want you to stay. Amara's heart stopped. Here, in the house, for a week, a trial period. Why? Because Zoe needs more than occasional visits. She needs consistency. And if you're serious about being in her life, I need to know you can provide that. A week, to start. And then we reassess. Together, that word again. I have a job, a lease, responsibilities, none of which compare to... He stopped himself. None of which I can account for, but I can make accommodations, if you're willing. If she was willing. She thought about her apartment, the stained carpet, the neighbors who argued through thin walls, the job that paid barely enough to cover rent and left nothing for savings. She thought about her daughter sleeping on the other side of that door. Okay, I'll stay. For a week. He nodded. Just once. Like a contract had been signed. Margaret will prepare a room. I'll have someone retrieve anything you need from your apartment. I can get my own things. With security, non-negotiable. Amara almost argued, stopped herself. One battle at a time. Fine. With security. Tomorrow morning, Zoe has school, I have meetings, but we'll have breakfast together, 7 sharp. 7 sharp. He turned to go. Stopped. For what it's worth, I hope this works. Me too. He walked down the hallway, disappeared around a corner. Amara stood alone, listening to her daughter breathe through the cracked door. 6:47 a.m. Amara woke in a bed that wasn't hers, in a room she didn't recognize, surrounded by silence so complete it felt engineered. She lay still, orienting herself. White ceiling, crown molding. Windows covered by curtains that blocked all light. The guest room. Right. She'd been shown here last night by Margaret, who'd appeared at precisely the moment Damien left, as if summoned by invisible signal. The room had been prepared already. Towels in the bathroom, water on the nightstand, clothes hanging in the closet that weren't hers but fit perfectly. She hadn't asked how they knew her size. She got up, showered, dressed in yesterday's clothes because the ones in the closet felt like accepting something she hadn't agreed to. At 6:58, she opened her door. A man stood in the hallway. She startled. Ms. Okonkwo, I'm Thomas, security. I'll escort you to breakfast. I can find my own way. I'm sure you can. He didn't move. Amara understood. Not a suggestion. Lead on. The walk to the dining room took 3 minutes and 2 staircases. Thomas moved a step behind her, silent except for his footsteps. The dining room, not the intimate family room from last night, but a larger space with windows that caught morning light, held Damien and Zoe already seated. Zoe spotted her, first. You're still here. I said I would be. Zoe bounced in her chair. Dad said you might leave in the night. Zoe. Damien's voice carried warning. Amara took the seat across from Zoe, beside an empty chair at the head of the table. Damien occupied the head. I don't typically sit there, he said, noting her glance. Then why are you sitting there now? Because this isn't typical. Staff appeared. Eggs, toast, fruit, coffee for Damien, juice for Zoe, water for Amara without being asked. Did you sleep okay? Zoe's question came around a mouthful of toast. Yes, it was very quiet. I know. I used to have trouble sleeping because it was too quiet. Dad had to put in a sound machine. What sounds does it make? Rain, or ocean, or forest. I like the rain one. Me too, Zoe grinned. Damien ate in silence, watching them. I have to leave for school in 20 minutes, Zoe said. Will you be here when I get back? Yes. What will you do all day? Amara looked at Damien. I'm not sure. I have meetings until 4, Damien said. Margaret can show you the grounds, the library, whatever you need. And after 4, we'll discuss logistics. Logistics. The word landed flat. Zoe finished her eggs and pushed back her chair. I need to get my backpack. She ran from the room before anyone could stop her. Silence settled. She's excited. Yes. Is that a problem? It could be. If you don't follow through. I'm here. For now. Amara set down her fork. You invited me to stay. If you don't want me here, I want what's best for Zoe. And you're still not sure if that's me. I'm still not sure of anything. A staff member appeared to clear Zoe's plate. The interruption stretched. When they were alone again, Damien spoke. I have people researching you. I assumed. Your employment history, your medical records, Your associations. Find anything interesting? 3 jobs in 2 years. A lease violation from 18 months ago. A prescription for anxiety medication that you stopped filling 6 months back. I couldn't afford it anymore. I noticed. She waited. That's all you found? That's all my team found so far. They're still looking. For what? Anything that would give me reason to send you away. The honesty surprised her. And if you find it, then this weekend's early. And if you don't? He was quiet for a moment. Then we figure out what comes next. Zoe burst back into the room, backpack on, braids bouncing. I'm ready. Damien stood. I'll walk you to the car. He passed Amara without looking at her. Zoe stopped beside her chair. Bye. And then she was gone, following her father, leaving Amara alone in the dining room with cooling coffee and the weight of being watched. The day passed in a blur of waiting. Margaret gave her a tour of the house. 27 rooms, not counting service areas, library, gym, pool house, gardens that stretched to a tree line Amara couldn't see past. Staff moved through the space like ghosts, present and absent simultaneously. Amara spent most of the afternoon in the library, surrounded by books she was afraid to touch. First editions, signed copies, leather bindings that cracked when opened. At 3:15, her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Ms. Okonkwo? This is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm Zoe's therapist. Amara straightened. Yes? Mr. Sterling asked me to reach out. He thought it might be helpful for us to talk before your time with Zoe continues. He scheduled a therapy call without telling me? He suggested it. I'm calling to ask if you're interested. The distinction mattered. Amara wasn't sure why. Okay. Are you free tomorrow at 2? I can come to the house. Yes, I suppose. Wonderful. I look forward to meeting you. The call ended. Amara stared at her phone. The library door opened. Damien entered. Different suit than this morning. Same controlled expression. I see Dr. Chen called. Did you know she would? I asked her to. You could have told me. I could have. He crossed to a window, looked out. I chose not to. Why? Because I wanted to see how you'd react to the unexpected. And how did I react? You answered the phone. You agreed to the meeting. You didn't hang up or yell or refuse. Is that what you expected? I don't know what I expected. He turned from the window. Zoe's bus arrives in 40 minutes. She'll have homework. Then dinner at 6:30. You can join us or eat separately. I'll join. Good. He moved toward the door. Damien. He stopped. Turned. You're testing me. Yes. You could just ask me questions. Get to know me the normal way. There's nothing normal about this situation. No. But there could be. If you tried. Something shifted in his expression. A crack in the control. I am trying. Are you? Every second you're in this house, I'm trying. Every time my daughter smiles at you, I'm trying. Every moment I don't have my security team escort you out, I'm trying. He took a breath. This is difficult for me. It's difficult for both of us. No, you don't understand. He stepped closer. I don't do this. I don't let people in. I don't. He stopped. You don't what? Trust. The word hung between them. What happened to you? That's not relevant. It is, if it affects how you treat me. Everything affects how I treat everyone. That's how the world works when you're... He caught himself. When you're what? Me. She waited. He didn't explain. I need to make some calls. Zoe will be here soon. He left. Amara stood in the library, surrounded by books she couldn't touch and questions she couldn't ask. The week developed a rhythm. Mornings, breakfast with Zoe and Damien, conversation stilted, staff present, everything observed. Days, the house, the grounds, Dr. Chen's visits, which happened twice more and involved questions Amara had stopped asking anyone. about her past, her choices, her hopes for the future. Evenings, dinner, homework help, bedtime stories, nights, Amara in her guest room, Damien in his office, the house silent around them. On day 4, something changed. Zoe had a nightmare. Amara heard her screaming at 2:17 a.m., was down the hall before she was fully awake. Damien got there first. He was holding Zoe when Amara reached the doorway, her small body wrapped in his large arms, her face buried in his shoulder, sobs shaking both of them. He looked up. Their eyes met. "It's okay," he was saying. "I'm here. You're safe. Nothing's going to hurt you." Zoe pulled back. "Where's Amara?" "I'm here." Amara crossed to the bed, sat on the edge. Zoe reached for her with one hand while still holding Damien with the other. For a long moment, all three of them stayed like that. Connected. Anchored. "I dreamed you left," Zoe whispered. "Both of you. I was alone in a big house and no one came." "We're here," Damien said. "We're not leaving," Amara added. Zoe looked between them. "Promise?" The word carried everything a 7-year-old couldn't express. Fear, hope, desperation, need. Amara looked at Damien. He looked back. "Promise," they said together. After Zoe fell back asleep, they stood in the hallway again. 3 a.m. darkness pressing against the windows. "She has nightmares often?" "More than I'd like." "Has she always?" "Since I brought her home. The therapist says it's normal. Attachment trauma. Fear of abandonment." Amara leaned against the wall. "I did that to her." "We both did." "You didn't even know she existed." "No. But I wasn't there. That's still absence." He rubbed his face. Exhaustion showed in the lines around his eyes. "I'm going to make tea. Do you want some?" The question surprised her. "Yes." They walked to the kitchen, a space she hadn't seen yet, industrial and spotless, and Damien moved through it with unexpected familiarity, filling a kettle, finding cups, measuring leaves from a tin. "You know how to make tea." "I know how to do a lot of things. Most of them poorly. That's not the impression you give. The impression I give is carefully constructed." He handed her a cup, kept one for himself. They sat at a small table in the corner, staff table she guessed, and drank in silence. "Why did you really bring me here?" He considered the question. "Because Zoe needs something I can't give her." "A mother?" "Context. History. Someone who knew her before I did." "I knew her for 18 months. "That's still longer than anyone else." Amara wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "What did the reports tell you?" "The ones about me?" "That you had a difficult childhood. That you came to this country alone at 16. That you worked through college and graduated with honors. That you met me at a party I don't remember attending and left before I woke up." She winced. "I didn't know who you were." "Most people don't. At parties like that, I'm just another face." "You weren't. I knew you were—" She stopped. "Different." "Different how?" "You listened. When I talked, most men at those parties don't listen. They wait for their turn to speak. You actually heard what I was saying." He set down his cup. "What were you saying?" "I don't remember. That's the horrible part. I remember how it felt to be heard, but not what I said. I don't remember any of it. The whole night is blank." "Is that normal for you?" "It was then. Less so now." She understood what he wasn't saying. "You were using." "I was self-medicating." "Using implies intention. That's a fine distinction." "It's the distinction that matters to me." The kitchen clock ticked. 3:42 a.m. "We're both broken in different ways." "Yes. And we made a child together." "While broken." "Yes. And now we're trying to fix things." "Yes." She looked at him. Really looked. Not at the suit or the house or the empire. At the man. "Are you scared?" "Constantly." "Of what?" "Of everything. of her getting hurt, of her hating me, of failing her the way. He stopped. The way? The way my parents failed me. The words were quiet, private, not meant to be shared. She didn't push. I'm scared too. Of what? Of all of that, and also of you. Me? You have all the power here. You could send me away tomorrow and I'd have no recourse. I know. That doesn't bother you? It terrifies me. She frowned. Why would that terrify you? Because I know what I'm capable of when I'm afraid, and I don't want to be that person. Not with Zoe, not with you. She set down her cup. Then don't be. It's not that simple. It could be, if you let it. He was quiet for a long time. The weekend's in 3 days. I know. I need to make a decision before then. I know. What do you want? If you could have anything? She thought about the question, really thought. I want to be Zoe's mother. Not legally. I know that ship has sailed. But actually, practically, present in her life, at her school events, her birthdays, her nightmares. And that's all? That's everything. He nodded slowly. Okay. 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 We'll make that work. How? I don't know yet. But we'll figure it out. There it was again. That word. We. Day 6. Amara woke to knocking at her door. Ms. Okonkwo, Mr. Sterling requests your presence in his office. She dressed quickly. Found Thomas waiting in the hall. The walk to Damien's office took her through parts of the house she hadn't seen. Past a gallery of photographs, Zoe at various ages mostly, but also images of buildings, landscapes, people she didn't recognize. She paused at one. A woman? Dark hair, formal pose, dead eyes. His mother. Thomas's voice came from behind her. She doesn't look happy. She wasn't. They moved on. The office occupied a corner of the house's east wing. Windows on 2 walls. A desk the size of a small car. Screens and papers, and the controlled chaos of someone who ran empires. Damien stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what the board says. The answer is no. Pause. Then tell them I said no, personally. And if they have a problem with that, they can schedule a meeting to discuss it. Pause. Next quarter. He ended the call. Amara. Sit. She sat. He didn't. I received some information this morning. Her stomach tightened. About me? About your former employer. The restaurant you worked at before you came here. What about them? They filed a complaint. Claimed you stole from the register before you left. The words hit like ice water. That's not true. I know. She blinked. You know? The complaint was filed 2 days ago, after you'd already been here, after your name appeared in a security database my company monitors. I don't understand. Someone is trying to create a narrative, a paper trail that makes you look unreliable, criminal even. Who? He crossed to his desk, pulled a folder. Do you know a woman named Patricia Marsh? The name meant nothing. No. She's married to the man who owns the restaurant. She's also the sister of a woman I dated briefly 2 years ago. The connection took a moment to form. Someone's trying to get to you through me? That's my assessment. What do? We handle it. He said it simply, like handling things was something people just did. How? I have lawyers. They'll address the complaint, make it disappear. And the person behind it? His expression hardened. That's being handled separately. Amara stood. I can't let you fight my battles. This isn't your battle, it's mine. You're just caught in the crossfire. Because of Zoe. Because of me. Because I brought you into my world without considering the consequences. I chose to stay. Did you? Or did I make the alternative impossible? The question cut. I could have said no. I could have walked away. Could you? With Zoe here? She didn't answer. He sighed. This is what I was afraid of. This is why I don't let people in. Everyone who gets close to me becomes a target. I can handle being a target. Can you? Because this is just the beginning. If you stay, if this becomes real, there will be more. Journalists, competitors, people who want to hurt me and will use anyone they can to do it. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to give you an honest picture. Then give me one. All of it. Not just the parts you think I can handle. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened another folder. Inside, photographs, headlines, court documents. 3 years ago, a woman claimed I was the father of her child. The press ran with it. Stock prices dropped. Board members called for my resignation. Amara looked at the documents. Was it true? No, DNA proved it within a week, but by then the damage was done. She'd sold her story to 4 outlets. My reputation took years to rebuild. And this woman? Settled. Quietly, with conditions. What kind of conditions? The kind that ensure she never speaks publicly again. Amara absorbed this. Is that what you'll do to me? If things go wrong? Is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think of you. You bring me into your home, you let me bond with our daughter, and then you tell me stories about silencing women who cause you problems. I'm telling you stories about protecting myself and my family from people who would destroy us for profit. And I'm supposed to trust that I'm not one of those people. You're supposed to understand that I'm not the villain in this story. I'm just a man trying to keep my daughter safe. The office went quiet. Amara looked at the photographs, at the headlines, at the evidence of a life lived under siege. I believe you. Why? Because you didn't have to tell me any of this. You could have handled the complaint without mentioning it. You could have kept me in the dark. I considered it, but you didn't. No. Why? He met her eyes. Because you asked for honesty, and I'm trying to give it. That evening, dinner was different. Zoe chattered through the meal, unaware of the tension between the adults. She'd had a good day at school. Her teacher had praised her project. She'd made a new friend. Her name is Maya, and she has a dog named Biscuit, and she said I could meet him sometime. That sounds nice. Can I, Dad? Can I go to Maya's house? Damien looked at Amara, back at Zoe. We'll talk about it. That means maybe. It means we'll talk about it. Zoe accepted this with the practiced resignation of a child who knew which battles to fight. After dinner, Amara helped with homework while Damien took calls in his office. The normalcy felt fragile, a construct that could shatter at any moment. At bedtime, Zoe requested 2 stories instead of 1. Please, it's almost the weekend. 1.5. 2.5. That's more than 2. Zoe giggled. They settled on 2. Amara read through both, her voice growing softer as Zoe's eyes grew heavier. By the end of the second book, Zoe was asleep. Amara set the book aside, watched her daughter breathe. The door opened softly. Damien stood in the frame. She's out? Yes. He crossed to the bed, adjusted the blanket, smoothed a stray braid. The tenderness surprised her. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe she'd known it was there all along, buried beneath the control and the caution. I made a decision. Amara stood. About what comes next. They moved to the hallway. The door closed behind them. I want you to stay, permanently. The words hit like a wave. What? Not here. Not in this house. That would be complicated, but nearby. Close enough to see Zoe daily, to be part of her routine. You'd do that? I'd facilitate it. There's a property on the estate grounds, a cottage. It's been empty since I bought the place. I can have it prepared. I have a life, a job, a job that pays barely enough to cover rent, a lease that's month to month, a life that's been on hold since Zoe was born. You investigated all of that. Yes. And you're offering me, what? Charity? I'm offering you stability. For Zoe's sake. And if I refuse? Then you go back to your apartment and we arrange visits. Weekends, holidays, Whatever works. But that's not what Zoe needs, and I think you know that. Amara leaned against the wall. What would this look like? The cottage, the arrangement. You'd have your own space, your own income. I'd create a position for you on my foundation staff. Something meaningful, not charity work. You'd have access to Zoe before school, after school, whenever you want. And you. What about me? What would you be? My employer? My landlord? She couldn't finish the sentence. He finished it for her. Your partner in raising Zoe. That's all I'm asking. Partners don't own the property their partners live on. Partners don't pay their partners' salaries. What would you suggest instead? She thought about it. I'll take the cottage, but I find my own job. I pay rent, whatever's fair for the market. The market rate for that cottage is whatever's fair, not whatever's comfortable for you. He almost smiled. You're negotiating. I'm establishing boundaries. That's the same thing. Then I'm negotiating. He extended his hand. Deal? She looked at his hand, at the offer it represented, at the life it would reshape. She took it. Deal. 3 months later. The cottage was small. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that caught morning light, a garden that Margaret had offered to maintain, and Amara had declined. She planted vegetables instead, tomatoes, peppers, herbs she barely knew how to use. Zoe helped on weekends. They knelt in the dirt together, hands covered in soil, talking about school and friends and the small dramas of second-grade life. Maya's parents are getting divorced. That's sad. She said it's okay because now she gets 2 Christmases. That's one way to look at it. Dad says divorce is complicated. Your dad's right. Are you and Dad going to get divorced? Amara sat back on her heels. We're not married, sweetheart. I know, but you live here and he lives there and you both take care of me. That's like being married. The logic was impeccable and impossible. It's different. How? Married people share more than just taking care of someone. They share a life. Together. You could share a life with Dad. Zoe, he likes you. I can tell. He looks at you the way Maya's dad looked at Maya's mom before they got mad at each other. How does Maya's dad look at her mom? Like she's a puzzle he's trying to solve. Amara didn't know what to say. Can we plant more tomatoes? The subject dropped. They planted more tomatoes. That evening, Damien arrived at the cottage unexpectedly. He'd never come here before. Always waited at the main house, always maintained the boundary between their spaces. Amara opened the door. Is everything okay? Yes, He stopped. Looked past her at the cottage interior. May I come in? Of course. He entered. Stood in the middle of her small living room, looking distinctly out of place. You've made changes. Some. The pictures. On the wall. She'd hung photographs. Zoe at various ages, the ones she'd saved, the ones Damien had provided, the ones they'd taken together over the past 3 months. I wanted her to see herself here. He cleared his throat. That's good. He moved to the window, looked out at the garden. She told me you planted vegetables. We're attempting vegetables. Success is still uncertain. She's happy. I hope so. He turned. I came here to say something, and I'm not sure how. Amara waited. These past 3 months, watching you with Zoe, watching her with you, it's changed things. Changed things how? Changed me. How I think about... He stopped, started again. I built walls, after my parents, after the women who tried to use me, after everything. I built walls and I convinced myself they were protection. They were. They were isolation. There's a difference. He crossed the room, stood closer than he'd ever stood. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Whatever this is between us. Amara's heart pounded. There doesn't have to be anything between us. But there is. She didn't deny it. Zoe notices. I know. She told me I look at you like a puzzle. Do you? Yes. No. I look at you like, he exhaled, like someone I want to understand, someone I'm afraid to understand. Why afraid? Because understanding leads to closeness, and closeness leads to vulnerability, and vulnerability leads to pain, has only ever led to pain, in my experience. Amara reached for his hand, took it. I've been hurt too. I've been broken, and rebuilt, and broken again. And I still chose to be here. To try. How do you do that? I don't know. I think about Zoe. About what she deserves. About what I want her to learn about love and courage and showing up even when it's hard. And what do you want her to learn? That love isn't weakness. That letting someone in doesn't mean losing yourself. That families can be messy and imperfect and still work. He looked at their joined hands. I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not asking you to be anything. I'm just asking you to try. That's what you said before. In the kitchen. At 3 a.m. And you said okay then too. I did. So say it again. And mean it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. Okay. Okay? I'll try. Really try. Not just with Zoe, with you, with whatever this is. You don't even know what this is. No. But I want to find out. He kissed her. Soft, uncertain. A question, not a statement. She answered it. A year later, the cottage wasn't enough. Not because it was too small, though Zoe complained about that often, but because the distance between buildings no longer made sense. They moved into the main house together on a Tuesday in March. Zoe helped carry boxes, chattering the entire time about which room she wanted and where her books should go, and whether they could get a dog now that they were a real family. We were always a real family, Amara said. I know. But now we're a together family. That's better. Damien appeared in the doorway, carrying a box labeled Amara, Kitchen. Where does this go? Kitchen. Which kitchen? There are 3. The one we actually use. That narrows it down to 2. Zoe giggled. They unpacked through the afternoon. Staff helped, but Amara insisted on doing some of it herself, touching each object, placing it where she wanted. Her things looked strange in these rooms. Old books on new shelves, worn cookware in pristine cabinets. A life she'd built fitting imperfectly into a life that had been built for someone else. But it fit. That was the miracle of it. It fit. That evening, after Zoe was in bed, they sat on the terrace and watched stars appear above the tree line. No regrets? Amara considered the question. None. Not even. He reached for her hand. I called my lawyer today. About? About changing the custody arrangement, officially. She turned to look at him. What do you mean? I mean joint custody. Legal recognition of what's already true. Damien. You're her mother, in every way that matters. It's time the law caught up. Tears she hadn't expected blurred her vision. You don't have to do that. I want to. I should have done it months ago. Why didn't you? Because I was still scared. Still holding back pieces of myself. Still waiting for something to go wrong. And now? Now I'm tired of waiting. I want to live. With you. With Zoe. Without conditions or contingencies or escape routes. She leaned into him. Felt his arm wrap around her shoulders. This isn't how I imagined my life going. Neither did I. I thought I'd be alone forever. That I'd lost Zoe for good. That I didn't deserve. Stop. Stop what? Stop thinking about what you don't deserve. Start thinking about what you've built. She looked at the house behind them, at the garden she'd planted, at the window where Zoe's nightlight glowed. I built this. We built this. Together. There was that word again. Together. It didn't sound foreign anymore. 2 years later. The school gate was different now. Not the gate itself. That was the same black iron, the same guard booth, the same cameras tracking every approach. But Amara was different. She drove through the entrance without hesitation, parked in the lot without checking her mirrors, walked to the building without counting doors or watching for threats. She belonged here now. Mom! Zoe ran across the courtyard, 9 years old and growing faster than Amara could track. How was school? Good. We learned about ancient Egypt. Did you know they used to preserve dead bodies with salt? I did know that. That's gross. A little. Zoe fell into step beside her as they walked to the car. Is Dad coming to the thing? Tonight? The thing? The recital. Remember, I have a solo. He'll be there. He wouldn't miss it. He missed it last time. He was on a plane last time. He's not on a plane tonight. Zoe considered this. Okay, but if he misses it again, I'm telling Maya's mom to adopt me. Noted. They reached the car. Zoe climbed into the back seat. She'd started insisting on it recently, claiming it made her feel professional. Can we get ice cream on the way home? Before dinner? As a snack. A pre-dinner snack. Your father would not approve. Dad's not here? I'll think about it. Zoe grinned. She knew what "I'll think about it" meant. They stopped for ice cream. The recital was held in the school auditorium. Folding chairs. A makeshift stage. Parents crowding the aisles with phones held high. Amara saved a seat for Damien. Checked her watch. Checked her phone. At 6:58, he slid into the chair beside her. Made it. Just barely. Flight delay. Not my fault. She took his hand. The lights dimmed. Zoe appeared on stage with her class, positioned front and center. She scanned the audience, found her parents, and smiled. The music began. Amara watched her daughter sing, off-key in places, breathlessly enthusiastic in others, and felt something settle in her chest. This was her life now. Not the apartment with the stained carpet, not the jobs that paid barely enough, not the years of waiting and wanting and wondering. This, a seat in an auditorium, a man beside her who held her hand, a daughter on stage, singing her heart out. This. She's getting better, Damien whispered. She's wonderful. That's not the same thing. It's the only thing that matters. He squeezed her hand. The song ended. Applause erupted. Zoe bowed, caught her parents' eyes, and grinned. And Amara grinned back, feeling the full weight of everything she'd almost lost and everything she'd somehow found. Later that night, after Zoe was asleep and the house had gone quiet, Amara stood at the window of the bedroom she now shared with Damien. The gardens stretched dark below. Security lights blinked at intervals along the perimeter. Somewhere beyond the tree line, the world continued, full of noise and chaos and things that could hurt. But in here, there was stillness. Damien appeared behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Can't sleep? Just thinking. About that day at the school gate, when I didn't know if I should get out of the car. But you did. I almost didn't. I almost drove away. What stopped you? She leaned back against him. I don't know. Something. The letter. The date. The fact that her name was on it, and I hadn't seen it written down in so long. And now? Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. He turned her to face him. I love you. 3 words, simple, direct. He'd said them before, many times now, but they still landed with weight. Still carried the surprise of something she'd never expected to hear. I love you too. No, that's very confident. I've learned to read the signs. She kissed him, soft, familiar. Thank you. For what? For finding her. For bringing me back. For not giving up when you had every reason to. I had one reason not to. Zoe? You. She pulled back. Me? From the moment you showed up at that school and refused to leave after 20 minutes, I knew. You weren't someone who would disappear. You were someone who would fight. I was terrified. So was I. Still am some days. But you stayed. So did you. They stood together at the window, looking out at the darkness and the light within it. Tomorrow there would be breakfast, and school runs and meetings, and the ordinary chaos of a life shared. But tonight there was only this. Two people who had almost missed each other, standing in a house that had become a home, holding on to what they'd built together. It was quiet. It was grounded. It was final. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Mr. Douglas Tales, where powerful stories unfold one moment at a time.